Welcome to the channel. Watch with us today as we repair this loader mount that had become bent in operation. As you can see, it no longer attaches to the bucket on that right side. The left over there, perfect. The right, way out of line. Normally I'd gouge these welds out. However, we were using that machine in another process, and so I brought this one here in the back of the shop and began to grind out these small welds. It really didn't take much more time anyway. So we're grinding here, trying to take out just the weld, trying to get down to where you can see the crack in the metal where the bushing there and the frame originally would have attached. And be quite a bit of grinding here, quite a bit of work to get to this point. But in all reality, it just it's a good process. It's a simple process. You don't remove more metal than you want to remove. It's really a pretty effective and efficient process. It's one of the things that people that don't repair things often don't realize is the time involved in making repairs and making them well and so that they last for years to come. It's a time-consuming process. Doing something right, doing it well, it takes time. But in the end, you know, I had a friend one time say, there's no time. I don't have time to be broke down. I don't have time to get it fixed. And I was talking with him about it. You know, it's going to take some time to fix this. And he was hoping, you know, to have a quick fix and get back going really quickly. And I just asked him, I said, are you wanting a quick fix only to be broken down again in a few days or maybe a week or two? You know, do you have time to be broken down again? Was where I was going. And he began to realize that taking a little more time, being broke down for a little bit longer initially as we do it right and do it well, and getting back going again is much better than a quick fix, a quick patch, and only to be broken down again in a few days' time. So as you watch this and as you see all that goes into these repairs and the time involved, I mean, these videos are edited and sped up. There's a significant amount of time involved in this, but the end result will last, whereas if we just quickly put a patch job on it, it wouldn't last. Right now here we're using a 1/8 grinding disc, and it's chewing out that weld and getting things pretty clean and getting it down, like I said, back to before the weld was ever put on in the factory. Here in a moment you'll see I'll switch to an 0.45 cutoff disc. We use that a lot to cut angles into metal or do different things, but what we would use it for here is just a little bit of fine tuning as we get into that very deep corner. The 1/8 leaves a little bit of a rounded edge to it, and the 0.45 cutoff disc allows me to get in there just a little bit deeper, and it makes it much easier to find that crack and remove this piece. just about got all of that weld removed, just about ready to begin seeing if we can hammer that bushing out of the way where we can straighten and align the frame and the hole that the bushing goes in. As you'll watch as we're hammering here, you'll begin to see that bushing give. Starting to see the cracks developing really, and all of a sudden it's going to pop. There it went. It's going to pop out, and we'll be able to just slide out that factory bushing. Now, one of the things I had to do that you don't see in this video is I had to remove a grease zert that was inside the frame, and so I'd already removed it and set it out of the way. Now we're going to begin the process of straightening as much as we can the frame. Now, when something is bent like this, you never get it back original. Bending metal stretches metal, and so we get it close. We do as good of a job as we can of getting it back in its original shape, and then what we'll do, and you'll see this here in just a moment, we'll adjust that hole so that we can realign that bushing with the other side of the loader over there, and it is in that process that we're able to get it straight and get it true again, in spite of the frame being warped and bent. And so that's what we're doing here. We've got a die grinder. We're going to work on this hole ever so gently, ever so slowly. You don't want to remove any more metal than you have to, and so you just take off a little bit, go to the other side, take it off in the opposite direction, because that bushing is now going to sit just a little bit offset in this frame compared to factory. And again, that's on account of the metal being stretched in a way that you can never completely get it back factory. It's a 1-inch pin here. So we slide this piece of 1-inch cold roll into the bushing on the other side that's still factory and still in good shape, and we slide in the bushing we removed a few minutes ago. And that 1-inch pin just kind of helps self-align these together, so that as we tack and as we begin to weld this pin back in, this bushing, excuse me, back into place, it's everything's lined up and ready to go. We've got a little bit more tweaking to do to get it right where we want it. Again, this is quality repair work. It takes a little bit of time, but it's what will last in the long run. Back in again with the pin and the bushing. You see there, it goes through the holes now, and everything lines up the way we want it to line up. We're going to tack it in place. And one of the things I've learned the hard way a few times is you want to tack things in place, and you need them to be firm enough that they hold, but you also want to check and make sure that what you have done will work. I've welded things out before only to find out what I thought was right and accurate wasn't right and accurate. And so we're going to put some good tacks on here. And then we're going to slide that 1-inch bar out of the way, and we're going to reattach the loader mount to the loader frame. And we're going to head outside and make sure it fits the bucket the way we want it to, and the way it did when it came from the factory. So that's what's fixing to take place here. Checking some measurements, making sure things look the way we want them to look. And they do. Get that ground out of the way and slide this 1-inch bar out. It's amazing the close tolerances of a bushing and a pin. You think it'd just go out real easy, but it actually takes a little bit of effort. Reattaching the ground over there on the battery. We always disconnect batteries on equipment when we weld on them. We don't want to risk ever having an electrical occurrence that would ruin computers or any sort of thing like that. It's just a good practice to be in. So here we are. This is the mount for the loader. And again, everything's just tacked in place right now. And all we're going to do is back the tractor out and go get it, put it on the bucket, make sure it sits the way we want it to sit. And if that's the case, then we'll bring the tractor back in, remove that bracket, and go to welding. This time everything worked just as we wanted it to. First time it was awesome. So we'll pull that bracket back out of the way, that mounting bracket, re-expose the bushing that's right now just tacked in place, and we'll go ahead and weld it out and get it holding and back in a condition where it can stand up to the rigors and the abuse that these machines often go through. Cleaning that welding tip up a little bit there, making sure everything's ready, and here we go. Now we're going to weld about a quarter of the way around the bushing on that side, and we're going to switch and come over here and weld about a quarter of the way around this side in an opposite direction. Because if we just go to welding, what we'll find is the heat of the weld and the way the metal cools and what it does is even though I've got that bushing tacked in place, it's going to warp and twist, and so once it's welded, then we'd find that, hey, it in fact doesn't align with the bushing on the other side anymore. It has pulled in one direction or another. And so we start out here with several smaller welds, shorter welds, maybe an inch long, and we'll work our way around that bushing, switching sides and directions to try and minimize and limit any of that shift or change as the welding takes place. Doing a little more cleanup and prep here with the grinder. One of the things we opted to do to ensure that this loader was stronger when it left our shop than when it left the factory is we fabricated on our CNC plasma machine some plates that have a hole in the middle, and what they're gonna do is they're going to weld to that bushing, and then we're going to weld around the outside of that plate around the frame, and it just expands that weld surface out away from the original area where we made the repair. And so in the long run, what's going to happen is this plate is going to make the overall repair much stronger than it would have been if we just left it in its current present condition. So the grinder there is just getting things cleaned up and prepped and ready for us to put in those plates that we made. More or less all this plate is just a 1/4 inch thick square that's about 3 inches across, and then we had a hole in the center of it that was about a 1/4 inch or so bigger in radius than the bushing, and so we'll get that centered over that bushing and tack it in place, and then we can weld it to the bushing, and then we can weld around the outside of it to the frame. And as long as there's room for that, and we checked for that, as long as there's room for this addition, it just creates a much stronger and longer lasting repair. So here we are actually fitting that plate, and now we're going to come in with the welder. We're going to tack it in place. Getting it tacked in several places, just like everything. You've got to keep it from moving as much as you can, and so you put multiple strong tacks in there, and you do that with the thought in place of connecting them basically and welding them together So we'll get this side done, and there we've begun to actually weld, not just tack. We're connecting everything together. And the end product is it's much more, the strength that it has is greater than it ever was before. And so that helps the repair last quite a long time. Another thing we really focus on is ensuring that all of our welds tie in together. Because what we don't want to happen is for there to be a little bit of a gap in between welds or a failed tie-in, which would allow water especially, but contaminants to get in between this plate and the loader frame. We don't want in a few years for it to come back with everything been rusted and broken again because we didn't tie everything in well. And so we really take our time and make sure we get those tie-ins done properly so that everything seals up and everything is tight, and it won't allow those contaminants to get in there and create problems. You know, we can paint the outside, but we can't paint what's inside there, and so we have to protect it from the outer elements. Now we're just putting that same plate on the opposing side there, and once we get it on, everything will be ready to go and be ready to paint and put back together. This one was a little bit more of a challenge to fit. The outside there that I'm working on now was bent more and stretched more than the inside, and I wasn't able to get it as tight of a repair, clean of a repair, you know, as far as straightening it, as I would have hoped and wanted to. So again, we worked it earlier and got it as close as we could and lined up as best we could, but in the end what we had to do was have a little bit more welding done on this side to ensure that everything would be as normal as possible. You can see a little bit of a flame there as some of the oil had melted down basically from up above and caught on fire. And the welding's done. We let it cool down. We applied some primer and then some John Deere green paint. Now we're going in and the final reassembly, getting everything put back together for the last time. Pins go through here, and then they've got another little pin that keeps them from backing out and from moving. And the lower pin is the pivot pin. That upper pin there is the one attached to the hydraulic cylinder, and it's what actually tilts this bucket forward or back. Getting everything in place and lined up. That'll have this repair completed. Reattaching the ground and putting panels there around the engine back in place, and greasing everything up, getting everything done to ensure that this repair is ready to go to work in the instant it leaves the shop. That's our whole goal, is for you to not have to do anything extra, do anything more. We're going to have it ready to go when it leaves. Back the tractor back outside, and we're going to connect to that bucket and give you a chance to see what the final result was in repairing this mount pin that had been bent. So there's the original, and here's the repaired one. So you can see how much better everything lines up, and now that latch closes just as it should. Thanks for watching.